So transitioning to the passing game of the Broncos, as we said, it starts up front. Their pass blocking is phenomenal. They're the top ranked when it comes to PFF's pass blocking efficiency metric at 91.4%. And overall, Nix hasn't been pressured all that much. He's been pressured 28% of the time. That's 6 overall. Obviously, really good. And he's been sacked 24 times. So it's a decent number right there. He's been sacked 24 times. And 13 of those have been credited to Nix. So there are times where, he's not reading the coverage properly post snap, and he probably pulls it down and ends up scrambling or taking a sack at that moment. So 25.3% of the pressures that Nix has felt this year have been on him. It's the highest in the league. So again, there's something there when we're talking Bobby Babbitt, Sean McDermott at confusing and disguising the coverages to confuse Nix. There's something there that could lead to sacks, that could lead to pressures, that could lead to him holding on to the ball. And hopefully, as we'll get to in a few minutes, not scrambling, because he's actually pretty good at that too.
Yeah, he is athletic, and I believe he's 4th in EPA generated with throws on the run, which is nice, but he has one of the higher volumes, so you would expect those things to kind of go hand in hand a little bit. Some interesting numbers too, just with the passing game in terms of like sack rate. This ties into the Bills offense. Fewest sacks in the league for the Bills, lowest sack rate at 2.6%. The Broncos have the second lowest sack rate at 4%. And some of that is tied to Nix's athleticism. But again, how they isolate him, how they operate within that passing game, how it ties into the run, what they do. And it's someone put I forgive me because I didn't start. Somebody earlier said when we were talking about this, kind of put another Rams game, where the ball comes out quick or there's play action and we don't get pressure. Not necessarily, but also kind of like the idea of that. I see it and I understand it, why it would be in fans' heads, given how we're talking about this offense, how the presentation comes out, and then just overall how they operate within structure in terms of, again, insulating Nix, but then also how his athleticism plays into that as well.
Yeah, and I will say that it's a little different from the fact that from the perspective that they run a bunch of play action too. And so when you run play action, you're holding onto the ball longer. So you're going to see the average snap to it. Okay, they run play action 28.8% of the time. And that's what, top 10 in the league.
Yeah, I had him as the ninth highest play action rate. Also 17th in EPA per play action pass, in case anyone.
Right. And so when you're running that much play action, you're holding on to the ball a bunch. So when you look at his, snap to attempt or snap to throw numbers, they're going to be right around average snap to attempt 2.7 seconds. So it's on the higher end, not the highest end. Josh is right at 2.7 snap to attempt, not even snap to throw or average throw time. So he's going to hold on to the ball a little bit, but he's actually very smart. He's very decisive. He's not scared to hit those check downs really quickly. He doesn't take many negative plays. And again, sometimes his legs bail him out a little bit. But he is annoyingly athletic, annoyingly effective as a scrambler, or again, on those bootlegs, having that run option to just, tuck it and run. He's annoying in that regard. And so I was looking at some of his scrambles, and these are just scrambles and what direction he likes to scramble, or what direction he is more effective as a scrambler. And it's very similar as far as scrambles to left or the right. It's like 20 and 19 right to left. But when he rushes to his left, he gets 8.3 yards per scramble. When he rushes to his right, it's 4.1 yards. For what reason? I couldn't tell you. But it seems like there are times he gets to the top of his drop, and the Bulls, who's a good tackle and very athletic, he runs the rushers wide. And what Nix does is he steps up, and eventually he's like, oh, there's an outlet, I'm gone. And so you're going to see some scrambles in the film if you go back and watch it, and some probably from this weekend when AJ Epinesa is trying to get, up the field really quick, and he runs by the spot of the quarterback. Nix is probably going to take off. Again, 8.3 yards to his left, 4.1 yards to his right as a scrambler.
Yeah, and tying into that athleticism, I feel like and this is typical. I feel like Bronco fans overestimate his athleticism, but then casual fans don't give him enough credit for it.
Yeah.
But he will. This is a quarterback who I mean, all jokes aside, he's played a lot of college football.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. I think
And
he's like,
think about the conferences that he played in, the
yes.
styles he played in. It's a very good Rolodex for him. It's a very good resume.
And that's what I was going to tie into. Like the way he was at Oregon, you saw the athleticism flash. What he was at Auburn was primarily like a zone read QB, like read the end, take off, like arguably like one of the best athletes on the field. That's who he was. And granted, that was when he started at Auburn. So
Auburn, yeah.
approximately 17 years ago. He's however old he is now.
84 years
Yeah,
ago.
it's been 84 years. But he like that athleticism is still in there. But that's how he started. He was this legitimate dual threat quarterback in the SEC, being effective as a dual threat quarterback in the SEC. Him going to Oregon, he kind of put that athleticism on the back burner a little bit and leaned more into this high completion percentage, good decision maker, accurate, push the ball when needing to. Granted, that Oregon offense took great advantage with their speed and college hashes and all the pieces that come with it. But that guy is still in there, and you see it from time to time. And I think in a game like this, where it's a playoff game, you're facing a defense that is good at taking the ball away and forcing your hand, I wouldn't be surprised if there is more of an emphasis on him tucking and running, not even just by design, but quick play action. Oh, that B gap opened up because Bowles rushed my man wide. Yep, I'll take it. I'll take the quick 6 yards and I'll slide. And now it's 2nd and 4. Or it was, 2nd and 5, and now it's a first down. Him using his legs to not necessarily generate these huge backbreaking moments, but kind of using them to keep the offense on schedule and play within himself, which may seem kind of counterintuitive.
Right. And here's a good question from Adam. Do we think that Bobby Babich will be blitzing in the first half or introducing it in the second half? I can't comment on to how they're going to approach it, whether they go the Belichick style where they attack, get them unsettled, the quarterback unsettled, and then kind of back off. I don't know if they'll take that approach, but when it comes to blitzing versus not blitzing, Bo Nix, a lot of people are like, you know what, you just got to go after him. He's actually not that bad as when he is blitzed. He was blitzed this year 33.7% of the time. He's completing 61.3% of his passes for 1,364 yards, 6.9 yards per attempt, 11 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions when blitzed. So he actually has some decent answers outside of him just scrambling, because when you don't blitz him and when he's just under pressure, he's thrown 5 touchdowns and he's gotten intercepted 5 times. But more importantly, he takes off when not blitz. So 38 of his 50 scrambles this year actually came when there was a 4-man rush. Again, whatever scenario or configuration of 4 rushers, 38 of his 50 scrambles this year were actually when he wasn't blitzed, Anthony.
Yeah, I was going to say the majority, and again, different NFL to college, different. But given the game experience that he has, and then Payton coaching him, I was surprised in watching the tape at how much it seemed like coverages were giving him an issue, like late spins or just kind of muddying what we're showing here and disguising it a little bit. And again, he's 24, plenty of college experience, yada, yada, all jokes aside. Like, I guess I thought he'd be more process ready in that regard, but he's still a rookie. And for a Bills defense that loves to spin late, that, even if it is, Hamlin and Rapp, and the athleticism isn't there for Hamlin like it is for Cole, like we talked about last week, they still will spin late. They'll show too high and run single. They'll run vice versa. They'll spin who's the post and who's the down safety. Like, I feel like that, we talk about it every week, that marriage of coverage and pass rush for the Bills, I think really has an opportunity for the coverage doing a little bit more of the lifting when it comes to pressure, because you can make Bo hold on to the ball, or maybe not necessarily trust his eyes, or he's trying to figure out who's going where. And then Ed Oliver gets there, or Greg Rousseau gets there, or you take away that first initial designed schemed read like Cole Bishop did to Aaron Rodgers a couple weeks ago, and then the rush gets home.
Yeah, that complementary football is always important, especially when we're talking a designed offensive scheme by Sean Payton. And finally, when it comes to Nix, the passer, some of the other metrics we want to discuss before we jump into some of the film and show you some of what he can do on the field, outside of the pocket, on the run, on these bootlegs, was the fact that, he is a little undersized relative to the league. He is a little undersized. And that does come into play when we're talking passes being batted down, which we know the Bills defense for years gets schooled on this in pretty much every practice. And this year they only have 9 batted passes, but 2 of those were intercepted. Bo Nix leads the league in batted passes. He has 16 this year. And a lot of those come on these wide receiver screens. Some of the running backs going out to the flats or flaring out. He's trying to get rid of it out to him. That gets blocked. But there are some that happen over the middle too. And I think there's some good opportunities here for the Bills defense to, if they can't get home, if the ball's coming out quick on these screens, on these swing routes to running backs, which Bo Nix loves targeting running backs. He targets running backs over 20%, 20.5%. That's 5th overall. These opportunities are going to be there for Greg Rousseau to tip a bat a pass down or get the interception for Jordan Phillips. Those opportunities are going to be there against Bo Nix.
And I think that's part of the reason too, right? Why he, in addition to kind of the offense, what Payton wants, but why you want to get him moving, why they are, towards the top of the league and being in the top of the league in terms of design rollouts. And even Bo Nix just being, where are my stats here? He has the 2nd most attempts on the year in terms of throws on the move. So they are trying to get him out of the pocket. They're trying to get him, out of those potential scenarios where his height could be an issue. And if we're talking about Greg Rousseau, you had the great idea of, note, I should say, of, the difference of him rolling left versus rolling right. If he's rolling right, you're probably rolling into Greg Rousseau, maybe. So what does that length look like? And trying to shrink the airspace, getting his hands up, or just or getting down on him in general with that stride range and that radius. This height does tie into, again, why they like to move him. And also, as you have up on the screen there, why you see some outlet throws, wide receiver screens, that quick passing game. So it isn't an issue, in addition to just kind of alleviating potential pressure, giving him easy buttons. And just, again, some of the Sean Payton stuff for years, which was check downs and easy buttons and kind of forcing the defense's hand by making life easy for the QB.
All right, so that's a pretty in-depth breakdown on Bo Nix, but we're going to wrap it up with some film. Here's another segment on Bo Nix. Again, how he's tied into the offense, how Payton has some of those like guardrails so that he can't, go crazy as a rookie quarterback. There's some really good stuff on in this offense. Nix on the run, outside the pocket. He's very, very talented in that regard. So listen in. Over the last 4 games, the Broncos offense is ranked 7th in EPA per dropback, including 12 passing touchdowns, the 2nd most in the NFL in that span. Their quarterback, Bo Nix, is a decisive and smart player for his age. He takes care of the ball really well. But kudos to Sean Payton as well, because he has designed an offense that fits Nix. Payton uses a lot of play action for Nix to the tune of 19.9% over the last 4 games alone, which is the 5th highest over that span. And we all know the Bills have always struggled with play action because of their defensive philosophy. This season, the Bills have a 46.3% defensive pass success percentage, which is 24th in the NFL. They allow 7.6 yards per attempt on play action passes, which is the 7th highest in the league. The Broncos will look to exploit that this Sunday. Payton routinely gets Nix on the perimeter defenses with run action because he's actually a pretty good passer while on the run or outside of the pocket. This philosophy also makes reads a lot easier for the rookie QB because they are usually 3-level passing concepts that contain routes that attack all 3 levels of the defense, while giving the QB the ability to use his legs if there's no one open. The old ball coach is still one of the best play sequencers in the league as well. The run and pass game mesh and often look the same, but he also draws up several layers to plays in order to stay a step ahead of opposing defensive coordinators. The Broncos have 15 touchdowns off of play action, which is 3rd overall, thanks to their bootleg variations and ability to move the launch point for their quarterback. This can drive pass rushers crazy because they aren't able to just pin their ears back and attack the normal dropback depth, especially when you consider the run action. Whether off of run action or in the second stanza of plays, Nix is shown to be very adept at making plays outside the pocket. He's 6th overall in EPA per dropback, 2nd in passing yards, 2nd in touchdowns, and 2nd in 20-plus yard completions this year on passes outside of the pocket. He has that type of ability inside and outside of structure when talking about outside of the pocket. But he does it without turning the ball over. He does a fantastic job of that overall, seen in his 7.8% negative play percentage, which is 7th overall in the league. I expect the Bills to focus on making the Broncos offense one-dimensional, putting all of the responsibility on Nix. To do that, they must shut down the Broncos' run game, which will be led by their strong offensive line. Because Nix doesn't take many sacks. He's 2nd overall in expected points added, thanks to sacks. And that's because Payton gets the ball out of his hand with RPOs and screens, but also because Nix isn't afraid to take the check down to his running backs. Over the last 4 games, he's targeted the running backs 25.6% of the time, which is the 2nd most over that span. He's very aware of where his running backs are when he needs a lifeline, especially when defenses are capping the Broncos down the field threats. He will take the profit quite frequently. Stopping the run will be the key to forcing the Broncos into 3rd and long situations. This will allow the Bills to disguise their coverages and disrupt Denver's preferred game plan, controlling possession to keep Josh Allen off the field. Yeah, I mean that's really everyone's game plan against him, right? So I'm not stating anything that's not obvious to everyone. So, but it's obvious that yes, they got to make him one-dimensional. They got to slow down the run because he's actually very smart with the ball. He gets rid of the ball. He knows where his outlets are. Again, he has pretty good answers when it comes to that. Stopping the run and doing it in a way that doesn't stress the defense when it comes to coverage, because they do have some vertical threats, whether you're talking speed or some of that size down the field.
Yeah, Mims can fly. Everybody's favorite wide receiver 1, Troy Franklin, can fly. Sutton's a little faster than he gets credit for, but more of a ball winner in that type of mold. I'm really interested to see what happens on this side of the ball, especially. Also, I love the film there with all the checkdowns. Like, it's just so reminiscent of the Sean Payton offenses, and like Pierre Thomas has 90 catches. Alvin Kamara has all these catches. Mark Ingram has all these catches. Like, it fits Nix's style, but it's very much coached from Payton. And it makes sense. We saw Brady, Manning. We've seen Allen do it, and we've applauded him for it. That's that easy profit. The defense is getting into their drop, and you can hit the running back as the defense is still sinking into coverage. Like, man, like the amount of space that you can take advantage of is so important. I'm with you in lockstep. You got to stop the run, which is why I thought that question earlier from Adam, I believe, of like, dude, does Babbage blitz more early on? Does he blitz more in the second half? If they can stop the run without having to commit bodies in form of like a run blitz or bodies to the box, that would be tremendous. But I wonder if they can they do it with the front? Can they do it with the light box? And if they can't, like, I'm looking, or I should say, I'm hoping that's an immediate pivot. Like, if the Broncos are able to move the ball on the ground in that first drive, I'm looking for the second drive that they're like, screw it, we're run blitzing. We're bringing bodies in the box, because you cannot let that run game get going. And I think they'll blitz more to stop the run than necessarily stop the pass in this one, potentially, just because if that run game gets going for Denver, it creates this positive domino effect for them and this negative snowball for the Bills defense and the game script element as a whole, like we talked about. So I look for them to get that run game off course, maybe not necessarily with the same level of commitment as they did against Detroit, because that offense is a different beast, but it's got to be priority number 1. Because if you let Nix in that offense, and more importantly, Sean Payton, get comfortable and show that, they're going to eat, because he's going to understand where you're vulnerable, and he already knows that. And now that he knows it'll work, he's just going to kind of keep going after it, and you're going to be spinning your tires and chasing your tail a little bit, which terrifies me.
Yeah, and to wrap it up, when it comes to like the straight drop back passing game, I do think there are some opportunities. Again, the strength is the offensive line, but I do think there are some really good opportunities if we're talking straight drop back game from the Broncos. And one thing that showed up on film is, especially on third downs, where opposing defenses were running this 3-man game. You see it to the field here, where they have 3 rushers, 3 D linemen to the field here, and they're attacking that half slide protection. So left guard, left tackle are out to the left side there. You have a 3-man game here by the Chargers, and the backside guard, Powers, is at a different level. He's not able to help, and that the handoff between the center and the right guard is not smooth, and you see that pressure hit home. You're seeing a lot of the opposing defenses use this against the Broncos. And so a lot of times it's attacking the interior offensive line. Again, it's a strength when we're talking run game and pass game, but the center position, I think there's some opportunities there. And I know that the Bills know this because I talked to a few of them. They know that the center is going to be attacked a little bit. He's going to be under duress. They need to do some things just like you're seeing these teams do. Work those interior games and get one-on-ones against this center of the Broncos. Get Ed Oliver. Get, Group coming as a looper down the A gap. And like you're seeing here from Buckner, those type of plays, those type of 3-man games to attack that center where he's the pivot guy between that partial slide, 3-man slide, and then the 2-man to the other side. There's opportunities there for the Bills D-line.
Yeah, absolutely. No disrespect to Luke Wattenberg, the center for the Broncos, but there is, and part of it too is because the other 4 guys and how well they're playing, but he is kind of like the weak link.
They're up here, so
yes,
standard high.
So even if he's just like a regular average center, he's still below like subpar compared to how the guys around him are playing. But that is, that aspect to attack. And if you said it right, the very first thing you said when you started to pull up those clips was, getting Nicks into these like known passing situations. That's also, I think, stopping the run is so important. Get him into 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. Get that game script in your favor. Make him have to beat you with true drop back situations, known passing down in distances where he has to go out. He has to read everything. You can get into your bag from coverages. If you want to throw some sims and some creepers in there, cool. If you want to do some of the cool non-traditional Tampa stuff, out a dime or whatever. And then, you know what? Yeah, maybe let's walk some guys up to the line and let's create that man-on-man 5-0 protection. And then we're playing some games. We're gaming up the protection. Can we force Bo Nix to maybe adjust? And maybe he wants to keep the running back in because he thinks we're bringing 5 or 6, but we're not. And now that running back is getting out into the route distribution later, gives us more time to come downhill, play top down, stop them short, as we've seen the Bills do before. I'm hopeful for the game plan, even though I am worried that like that first drive is going to be so important. Like I just feel like in terms of a statement for the defense, but also in terms of potentially getting into the mind or the head of the Broncos in terms of getting them off script. And then you stop them after maybe you've already scored, or you stop them and you give the ball to Allen and then you score. And then that train starts rolling a little bit. I am excited. Erik, anything for that side of the ball to put a bow on it? Are you good? Any thoughts on anything regarding that Broncos offense, Bills defense, and that relationship and matchup?
No, I think you're spot on with the early drives by the Broncos, because again, the defense being on the field, the crowds is going to be going nuts, and they're going to want to do some things early to shut them up. All right. And one of those things that we can expect is, some screens, whether it's those wide receiver screens. If you see 4x1, or you see a trips and a wide receiver or running back coming across to make it a 4x1, expect that swing screen.
Yeah.
Expect that screen. Get your hands up, as we've seen Groot do and Epinesa do, because that's going out there, and they've done it a bunch this year. And we know the Bills do surrender a lot of screens. I think they've had 96 screens attempted on them as a defense, and that is number 1 overall. But they've only surrendered 5.94 yards per play, which is 22nd. Again, it's below average, but it's not as bad as people think. But they have given up 507 yards. It's been in
key moments, like timing. 2nd and long, or like a 3rd down. And so it's kind of like I think it's a bigger problem than what I'm about to say, but kind of like the James Cook drops.
Yeah.
Where he drops them in these high leverage moments, and it makes you think it's worse than it is. And yeah, just from the Broncos, again, I mentioned it in passing earlier, a 14% screen rate on the year. That is the 4th highest in the league. You're going to see it. And then what Payton has been doing recently of, how they've been using Mims to kind of send him on that, like a jet or the blast motion across, and then he's coming in like an orbit return, and how they're getting him the ball, and the linemen
just
are
like
getting
the Bills
down.
do.
Bro,
just like the Bills do with Shakir.
And you tie into that, or tap into, I should say, that speed of Mims and how shifty he is after. And yeah, Payton
You'll see him in the backfield too, right? You'll see him in the backfield, and they will motion him out and to get different looks and whatnot. And again, if you see a 4x1 look or a trips look, and then you see a receiver coming across the formation from the other side, screen. All right. That's literally their tell. The Bills do it too. They do it too. But again, it's a screen. Get your hands up. Get those hands up to bat those passes down and get those turnovers, because those opportunities are going to be there. Get in those passing lanes on these screens.
Yeah, and tying it all in with the run game and the Bills defense, and the spine has to be on point. We've got to see good production from the second and third wave of interior defenders. Ed and Daquan haven't necessarily been up to the level that the Bills have needed them to be or fans have expected. I think as the year has gone on, Daquan has quietly gotten better and improved. Ed, a little bit louder in terms of how he's improved, but they've got to get it, whether it's Jefferson or Johnson or Phillips or Carter. There cannot be this let up between the first wave and the second or third. And the first wave has to show out. It can't just be a whole bunch of meh. And let alone if there's like the separation between the first and second and potentially third. Yeah, the defensive line has to bring their hard hats, especially the interior, control this game, set the tempo, which honestly can be said for a lot of games potentially. Now,